Well, we're going to jump around a bit here, but start in John chapter 13. The Gospel of John chapter 13 and verse 34 will be the first one that we look at. We can't look at all the one another's. Okay, there's a lot of them in the New Testament, but we're going to look at a good number of them in the next 2 weeks. So, the big one, the one that keeps coming up over and over and over again, is the first one. And actually the one we'll be reading about this morning to begin with. So in John 13, verse 34, we read this. A new command I give you. Love one another. As I have loved you. Now this is Jesus speaking, right? As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you're my disciples, if you love one another. Now, I could just get to preaching right now, but I'm still doing the scripture reading, so better keep moving. Romans chapter 12, verse 10. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. So be devoted to one another in love. And then Romans 13:8. Romans 13, verse 8. Let no debt remain outstanding, except the continuing debt to love one another. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. Well, there's a few more. John 13:34. Oh, I already gave you that one, sorry. I just repeated the same one right there, didn't I? Okay, so I don't have to read those again. Ephesians 4, but there still are more, don't worry. Be completely humble and gentle, be patient, bearing with one another in love. A little bit different use of love here. Here's where we have to be patient and put up with each other because of our love for each other. A little different usage of it. And 1 Thessalonians 4:9. Now about your love for one another, we do not need to write you, for you yourselves have been taught by God to love each other. And then 2 Thessalonians 1:3. We ought always to thank God for you, brothers and sisters, and rightly so, because your faith is growing more and more, and the love all of you have for one another is increasing. This is Paul catching them doing good. This is Paul catching them doing the right thing, right? I just want to take a second to say, you are one of the friendliest group of people that I've ever had experience with. Let me say that you're doing something right in this regard. I'm sure there are places we need to grow in this, but I just wanted to take a second to say, like Paul did to the Thessalonians, good job. You got a good foundation here in loving each other. But we want to build on that and see it grow beyond what we've already experienced. So, that's what we want to see. And then Hebrews 10:24, let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds. That one just doesn't flow right out of the lips, but spur one another on. You see the old Western of John Wayne with his spurs, and what does he do? He kicks the back of the horse and gets it going again. And there's sometimes we need to be kicked and spurred on toward love and good deeds. In Hebrews 13:1, keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. In 1 Peter 1:22, I'm kind of moving faster. Now that you have purified yourselves by obeying the truth so that you have sincere love for each other. You've already got sincere love, but love one another deeply from the heart. And then 1 Peter 3:8, finally all of you be like-minded, be sympathetic, love one another, be compassionate and humble. And then 1 Peter 5:14, greet one another with a kiss of love. Some of you like that one. 1 John 3:11, for this is the message you heard from the beginning, we should love one another. 1 John 3:23, and this is his command, to believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and to love one another as he commanded us. Dear friends, let us love one another, 1 John 4:7. For love comes from God, and everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. And then 1 John 4:11. Dear friends, since God so loved us, we ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. And then 2 John 5. And now, dear lady, I'm not writing you a new command, but one we've had from the beginning. I ask that we love one another. I've got one more, and I think I'm done. 1 Thessalonians 3:12. May the Lord make your love increase and overflow for each other and everyone else, just as ours does for you. I kind of muffed that, so let me try one more time. May the Lord make our love increase and overflow for each other and for everyone else. Some of the words that we kind of hated to hear as little kids were something like this. We're going to have company. We need to get ready for company. Now, the reason we feared this was not because we hated people coming over, but what we didn't particularly like is the implications of it all. Getting ready for company. You know what it's like, right? You know, you aren't expecting company, so you don't go to the extra extremes to get the house clean and ready and all those sorts of things. But when company is coming, and you know company's coming, there's implications of this. It means I have to clean up my room and clean up stuff that I haven't touched for ages, you know? And it means that we gotta vacuum the floor extra good and sweep and mop and clean out everything, because we want to make sure that we make our best impression, all right? Company's coming, we have to go the extra mile. It means a lot of extra hard work. And I don't know about you, but that didn't sound very inviting to me as a friend, as a kid. But in a very real way, I want to call you to get ready for company. And what I mean by that is, I want us, as we're considering the one another's of Scripture, to consider how that impacts our ability to invite people to come here and to find a friendly, inviting, warm place where they're going to feel at home. I believe with all my heart that God is going to continue to send people our way. And we're going to have opportunities to invite people to come. And sometimes they're going to surprise us and show up on Sunday morning. What are they going to find when they get here? Let's get ready for company. Let's get ready for it, because it's going to happen. God is going to help us as we grow in our relationship with Him and our relationship with each other to reach out in love to this everyone else, the community that surrounds us. And when we do, there will be people who will be invited here, and we want them to find the place looking good. But I'm not so much talking about the building, although there probably are a few projects we could think about in that regard in days to come. What I'm mostly talking about is, what do they find here relationally? What do they experience the first time they walk through that door? Is it a good impression? Is it something that makes them want to return? Well, I hope so. We're going to consider that, and particularly how that we can think about these things with the one another's. Now, understand that all these one another's of Scripture are founded in this central thing that Jesus said. He said, I got one thing I want to really focus on. One command for you, and it's this: love one another. And he said, love as I have loved you. So this is agape love. This is that kind of sacrificial love that's described in Scripture that we've looked at in 1 Corinthians 13 and other places, that's patient and kind. And, you know, it's that kind of love that we're talking about. It's putting the other person ahead of our own personal interests. It's making sure that they're well taken care of. And so when we consider that central command that Jesus has given us, and basically says, if we do that one, we fulfill all the laws that are there. If we just do this one, if we get this one right, and in other contexts, Jesus kind of makes it two, that it's loving God with all of our heart and soul, mind, and strength, and it's loving our neighbor as ourselves. He said that's really at the heart of what it's all about. If we could narrow it down to two things, this will take care of it all. And you think about it, and the whole 10 Commandments can fit under those two categories, if you think about it. All of our ideas of morality kind of fall underneath that. If we're really loving God with all of our heart and soul and mind and strength, and if we're really loving each other as we should, all the rest of it falls into place. So love is the undergirding of everything I'm going to say today. This is all about loving each other and everyone else. Love that abounds and overflows in us, and then it makes its impact in the community around us. And it should be a little of both. So, let's get ready for company. Francis Schaeffer had a couple things. You know Francis Schaeffer, he was a philosopher, theologian, wrote a ton of books, a bunch of them. And he had a book called The Church at the End of the 20th Century. Now, he's died a few years ago, but I think what he says here is actually still applicable. He says, I'm convinced that we could change this to 21st century, people all over the world will not listen if we have the right doctrine, the right polity or church government, but are not exhibiting community. There's no use saying you have community or love for one another if it doesn't get down into the tough stuff of life. And he goes on to say, our relationship with each other is the criterion that the world uses to judge whether our message is truthful. Christian community, he says, is the final apologetic. If we want to say something meaningfully to the world, if they don't sense that we're living out this truth, to love one another, then we have nothing to say, he says. The last and most important thing that we can show to the world is that we really do love each other deeply from the heart. And in the early church, it was said of them, the thing that drew the masses to Christianity in its early days was that the fact that they could see that in spite of persecution and even martyrdom, I mean, there were consequences sometimes to becoming a Christian. It was the love that they had for each other that drew people into the church. And it's always been like that. When we're doing it right, the love for one another, as it spills out in our lives, as the love of Christ is poured out into us, and we pour it out onto everybody else in the congregation, guess what? It spills out, and other people see it and are drawn by it. So that's kind of the foundation for what I'm going to say in the next couple minutes. One of the one another's that is used quite a bit is greet one another. Now, we're not going to get into all the stuff about the holy kiss, and although some of you might want to go there this morning, I'm not sure. But what I do want you to notice is that in almost all of Paul's letters, he sends greetings. And some of them, and like Romans, he spends a whole chapter, one whole chapter, greeting people that we don't have a clue who most of those people are. But a whole chapter of greetings. And he tells us over and over in his writings to greet one another, to express our love and our devotion to one another by greeting each other. And how do we do that in the church? We do it mostly as we come and we talk to each other, or we shake hands, and maybe we hug, and we express our love to each other in that simple act of greeting at the beginning, sometimes during it, but especially at the end of the service. There's plenty of opportunity for us to join together and fellowship together and continue to greet and fellowship with each other. And I want to suggest to you that we don't want to neglect this. Because one of the things that will make us an attractive church and will get us ready for company is when we learn how to do this well. When we learn how to greet each other and to do it in a way that people know that they're loved. They know that they're appreciated. When they know that somebody cares about them, they feel like, oh, this is home. This is where I belong. If they come into the church, and I've been there before, have you ever church shopped? Have you ever been to a place where you had to and you moved into a community and you had to kind of find out where you belonged. I had a couple times in my life. I first went to college in Minneapolis. I had to jump around, try to find the church I fit in. And then when we moved to California, there was an opportunity. Most of the time I couldn't choose because, I chose it by my employment, If I don't like the church I'm pastoring, that's kind of sad. So, but there's a little time when we moved to California where we could choose a church. And so we did a little bit of going, the first month or two, we went to a few different places. And, there were some of those places where nobody talked to me. Nobody said a thing. Maybe the person who handed me a bulletin, maybe. In some cases, they were so busy talking to themselves that they weren't even paying attention to me. I saw things that were just amazing at times. How visitors would walk in and they would be ignored. People would kind of look at them like, do I know who that is? I'm not quite sure if I know who that person is. Maybe I should go up and say something to them. But I don't know what their name is. Maybe they've been here forever. I don't know if I should. And they get themselves tied up in knots instead of just going up and saying, hey, my name's Jeff. So good to see you today. And then just in that friendly greeting, inviting a conversation, if the person wants to talk and engage with me. In some cases, the people don't want to, but in most cases, they do. They want to be warmly greeted. They want to feel like that they're welcome, that they're cared about, and that they're loved. And you do this pretty well, but I just want to remind you that when people walk in, try to be friendly and reach out and just in a natural way greet them. Now there's a couple ways you can do this. You can greet them as you enter. Now that's assuming that you come on time. If you come late, and I'm sorry, not during the sermon, it's not going to happen. But this is why I want to come on time so that we can really greet each other. We've established what we call it the coffee tent. But it's not a tent right now because it's too cold. But in a month or two, in a couple months maybe, we'll get that tent outside again. And we'll have a place there with coffee and tea and some snacks. That's one of the reasons, why are we doing this? To give them that welcoming environment. To say, we care about you, we want to get to know you. And it opens the door of opportunity for us to greet them. I just invite you to, even if you're not formally a part of that group that's putting the snacks out there, to pay attention to the new people who show up and take the time just to at least greet them and get to know them as best you can. It will be something that will help them to feel welcomed into our community and something that God will use to show the love of Christ to them, most importantly. The way we treat them reflects on our love for Christ and our love for one another. So, if you see someone you don't know, introduce yourself and welcome them. And if you see somebody that you've met before and you forgot their name, do it again. It's okay. It's better to embarrass yourself the second or third time than to avoid the person because you couldn't remember what their name is. You know that? All you just have to do is stick your hand out and say, my name's Jeff. And you might even apologize. I should know your name, but I'm bad with names. But they'll usually tell you. They'll get you, because they've been there too. They understand it. You're at least trying to get to know them, right? So if you see someone you don't know, introduce yourself and welcome them. And then try to be of service to them. If they're looking like they want to find out where the bathrooms are, if they've got kids, and they don't know what's going to happen with the Sunday school, try to, give them a little advice and help them through. And I know some of you do that already. And so I'm catching you doing right. I'm catching you doing good things. But I just want to encourage you to do it more and more. And this is an important thing. Okay. And then after the service, what can you do? There's a famous pastor who has what he calls the 30-second rule. And here's the 30-second rule. For the first 30 seconds after the end of the service, you find people you don't know and you talk to them. And then after the 30 seconds are through, then you can talk to your old friends. But for the first 30 seconds, try to find somebody you don't know very well. Now what does that force you to do? To talk to the new people. Because we just naturally talk to the people who either are next to us or the people that we're closest to. Or we think, oh, I got to go talk to Larry about that elders meeting thing, and I've got some business on my mind, and then I forget to reach out to somebody I don't know that well yet. So my encouragement to you, and I know he was in a big church. We're not always going to have a new person every Sunday, but there are people you know better than others. Why don't you reach out to somebody you don't know that well yet? Somebody that you've seen at a distance for a while, and I really should get to know that person. And just greet them. Open the door for the possibility of getting to know that person more deeply. So it takes us thinking a little bit more about who we're going to talk to. And I don't mean that you avoid the person sitting next to you. Somebody sticks their hand out and says hi to you. Don't avoid them, but do think intentionally. I want to make sure that I'm reaching out to people that I wouldn't normally think to reach out to. That's the point of the exercise. So greeting after the service ends. Look for lonely people. Look for people on the edges, especially when you're at a fellowship event like our Sandwich Sundays. And you see somebody sitting all by themselves. It's probably a good idea to have some people go sit by that person, not to leave them all by themselves. Now sometimes people do want to be by themselves. And if they look at you funny when you come over and sit by them, then maybe they do want to be by themselves. But most people want someone to be there in a friendly way. Give them space if they seem to want it. Don't smother them. But when you see someone who's lonely, it's especially an opportunity for us to share the love of Christ, which is the point of this whole thing. We're showing the love of Christ to those who come by just the simple act of getting to know them. Opening up the door of conversation by, hello, my name is, and then see where it goes. A simple way of showing the love of Christ. But you'd be surprised, how effective that is in reaching people. And you do it pretty well. Let's keep doing it better. Don't smother them. First time or two a family visit, they may want a little space. Don't interrogate them. I got to get all your information here. I had a lady in my church when I was in Ohio she felt like she had to get everybody's name, phone number, address, and birthdays, anniversaries. She had a whole list of things. And if she missed anybody, she just felt like she had missed out on life. This was the worst thing that could possibly happen. I saw her on several occasions run out into the parking lot after people yelling after them, hey, come back here, come back here. It wasn't the right time. So don't take it to the extreme, but, I've known a few others too. If you're a people person and you're especially gifted in hospitality, making people feel at home, our coffee tent or our coffee corner here might be a good ministry for you, where you're just kind of there to help people get oriented to what is going on in the church. I just kind of want you to think in terms of your gifting. Some of you would be horrible there. It's not your thing, but most of you would be pretty good with this. That's true, okay? I'm not going to name names. I could get in all kinds of trouble. Oh, okay, I'm going to keep going here. Another. I'm going to get in all kinds of trouble. Getting ready for company. In the worship service itself, participate with all your heart. Colossians 3:16. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly, as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom, through psalms and hymns and songs from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts. I love that. I have read so many articles online recently about churches that are not singing. Especially men who are coming to church and not singing. And they're saying, what's wrong with worship today that people aren't singing? Fortunately, the churches I've been in recently, that's not been the case. I'm thankful for that. I remember when I may have told somebody this story, but when I was a kid, I was asked to sing at a local church in town, And it was a big church of another denomination, it's Minnesota, you can guess what it probably was. If it's big and it's in Minnesota, it's probably Lutheran, and it was. And I was used to this little church where everybody sang loud. Everybody sang loud. And so I heard the organ start playing, and it was a familiar song. A Mighty Fortress is Our God. A good Lutheran hymn, right? Martin Luther himself wrote the thing. And I said, oh, I know this one. So I grabbed the hymn book, I'm looking at it, the organ is playing the thing, and it's time to sing, and I just started singing. A mighty fortress, and I'm looking around me because nobody else was singing. They were mouthing a little bit, they were kind of singing just a little bit, but mighty fortress, they're good Norwegians and Swedes, and they don't want to get too excited, and so not too emotional in this thing. So I just looked, I thought, what is wrong with these people? They're not singing, they're not participating in what's going on. And I've been in other places where this has happened too. There's something wrong when we aren't participating fully. When given the opportunity to sing, and if you're not good at it, it's okay. Just make a joyful noise, it's okay. When we all make a joyful noise, we encourage each other. We admonish each other, we teach each other. And guests are drawn in, even if they don't know the songs right away. If you're singing, they feel more comfortable, and they're willing to sing out a little bit better. I remember a lady named Mrs. Underhill. She used to sit toward the front of the church. Usually our family sat kind of near where she was. Mrs. Underhill knew what it meant to make a joyful noise. And she was so bad. She was so bad. She couldn't find a tone. I mean, she didn't have a clue what was up and down and what it was long. But with all of her heart, when it came time to sing, she just let it go. And you know what? It never bothered me that Mrs. Underhill couldn't carry a tune. She sang from her heart. And it was beautiful in its own way. And you know, one of the beautiful things about congregational singing or choirs is that what makes it unique and distinctive is how imperfection is able to blend in. It's what makes every choir a little bit unique, is those imperfections are mostly hidden when most people are doing well. And there's a few that are just a little off, but it still adds to the texture and the beauty of what's going on. And so it is when we gather together. Make a joyful noise. It's okay. Sing. And most of you do this really well. I'm thankful that this is a singing congregation. And I felt at home here from day one because of this. Because I have seen other places that weren't. And it's important to me to be a group of people that takes worship seriously. And it doesn't matter to me whether we sing hymns or we sing songs of the Spirit or whether we sing there's room for a wide variety of kinds of songs that we should be able to sing. And we ought to be able to, whatever the style, join in with all of our hearts. And I encourage you to do that. I always love John Wesley's rules for singing. Have you ever read these? They're at the front of most Methodist hymnals. And they're so funny. They're so good. I like them, but they're a little dated. He said this: sing all. See that you join with the congregation as frequently as you can. Let not a slight degree of weakness or weariness hinder you. If it's a cross to you, take it up, and you'll find a blessing. And then the second one is sing lustfully. Or lustily. Lustily, not lustfully. That could be a whole different thing. Lustfully. Wholeheartedly here. Paraphrase didn't come through very well. And with good courage, beware of singing as if you were half dead or half asleep, but lift up your voice with strength. Be no more afraid of your voice now, nor more ashamed of it being heard, than when you sing the songs of Satan. 3, sing modestly. Do not bawl as so to be heard above or distinct from the rest of the congregation, that you may not destroy the harmony, but strive to unite your voices together so as to make one clear melodious sound. And then sing in time. Whatever time is sung, be sure to keep with it. Don't run before, don't stay behind it, but attend closely to the leading voices and move therewith as exactly as you can. And take care you sing, not too slow. This drawling way naturally steals on all of us who are lazy. And it's high time to drive it out from among us and sing all of our tunes just as quick as we did at first. Sing modestly, sing in tunes, but most of all, sing spiritually. Have an eye to God in every word you sing. Aim at pleasing Him more than yourself or anybody else. In order to do this, attend strictly to the sense of what you sing, and see that your heart's not carried away with the sound, but offer to God continually. So shall your singing be as the Lord will approve of here, and reward when He comes in the clouds of heaven. It's pretty good advice in his own way. It sounds a little dated these days, but I love a lot of what he has to say there. Sing wholeheartedly and sing it to the Lord. Don't worry about, just do the best that you possibly can and sing to Him, and everyone will be happy. So the application here is do your best to sing out, even if it's not your favorite. Even if, this one, I don't like this hymn. Or I only like these, or I only like those. No. You know what? Different people will find different songs to minister them at a very deep point. And it may not be your favorite song, but it might be just the one that leads someone else right to the throne room. So if it's not your favorite, do your best. If God has gifted you vocally or instrumentally, look for ways to use your gift. We have plenty of opportunities. Worship team, choir, instrumental things. If God has not gifted you vocally or instrumentally, look for other places to serve. But make a joyful noise. Don't worry, it almost always blends in. Another of the one another's I wanted to touch on today is this one. Live in peace, or bear with one another, or live in unity with each other. And I just have a few short things to say about it. 2 Corinthians 13:11. Finally, brothers and sisters, rejoice. Strive for full restoration. Encourage one another. Be of one mind. Live in peace. And the God of love and peace will be with you. Ephesians 4:1. As a prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you've received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. When we look at these texts, we're encouraged to be humble, to be gentle, to bear with each other in love. There are some of us that are easier to love than other people. It's true. There are some of us are more difficult personalities to get along with than others. And you're going to find that some people deal with that person well and others are going to have more difficult. We have to learn to bear with each other. And sometimes people say stupid things. And they do stupid things. And sometimes they even hurt our feelings. That happens. They do things, maybe not intentionally. We know what their motives were, of course, but no, we don't. We assume that we do, right? There are all kinds of opportunities for offense, let's face it. It happens in congregation. Anytime you put two people in a room, there's the potential for conflict, right? Be forgiving. Make every effort to be an agreeable person. One of the things that I think creates the best environment for growth of a church